Yeah, you hear it. Got it.
Good evening. Welcome to the October presentation of the Calumet Revisited Forum in its 9th season. I am Michael Bowes of the Association for the Wolf Lake Initiative. I am co-host with Dr. Valerie Penninan of Calumet College of St. Joseph. Calumet Revisited is funded in part by the Indiana Humanities and the National Endowment for the Humanities. Before we hear from tonight's speaker, are there any announcements? If not, I have one. The Calumet Nature Exchange meets via Zoom at 7 p.m. Tuesday, October 18. Licensed teachers in Illinois and Indiana can earn 1 hour of professional development credit for attending. The presentation this evening is being recorded. The recording will be available within a week on Ollie's website. Would everyone please remain on mute? After each presentation, we will have a question and answer session. Tonight, we will hear from Dr. Amy McCormack, president of Calumet College, and emeritus professor Walter Skiba. The two will speak of the college's past, present, and future. And so we'll lead off with Walter.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. My name is Walter Skiba. Again, I'm a 1960s graduate, and I've been here quite a long time. And yes, I'm a professor emeritus in the humanities department, currently teaching courses in American cinema and world cinema. And I'm very happy to be doing this forum again with our president, Dr. Amy McCormack. I'll tell a few interesting, I hope, and inspiring stories first from the 1960s period, and then turn it over to Dr. McCormack, and she's going to talk about current and future initiatives here at the college. But I'm going to go back to a couple of stories I heard from alumni. These are true stories, and why would I talk about them? Because I think they epitomize our mission, concern for social justice that's always been there from the beginning. The first has to do with a student whose first name was and is Ray, and I'll just say that much so I could identify him. So he's came to the college at the beginning of the 60s. It opened the campus opened in 1960 in East Chicago, and it was all in one building for 3 years, in fact, 4721 Indianapolis Boulevard. And I just wondered how the college could function in that environment. But alumni have said, yeah, it was a close-knit group and everything worked out pretty well. Well, Ray came to the college, he said, because he wanted to go to a Catholic college for one, and it was very close to home, convenient for him. He came from a working class family, as most students, in fact, the vast majority of students came from working class. Fathers typically worked in the steel mills, refinery, or some related occupation here. The vast majority of students at that time. Ray's father worked at Inland Steel, and this was the year of their big strike that lasted some 4 months. And it was very difficult. The union had some strike funds set aside, but not enough to go around. And Ray's family was struggling. They had some limited savings at the time, and things were not going too well. Now, Ray was working, he said, at one of the smaller mills. It was a non-union mill, but he was the only one bringing in any kind of revenue at that time. So, and there's a lot of pressure on him. He said he registered in the fall for a full-time status, and he said, I can't do this. I'm going to have to withdraw from my classes for this semester anyway. So he went to the registrar's office, and at that time, the registrar was Father Cletus Kern from St. Joseph's College in Rensselaer. And they must have recognized something in Ray, that he was really a good student, had considerable talent, and he really wanted to be there. He didn't want to leave at all. But Ray told Father Cletus the story, and you would expect the registrar to say something like, yeah, I understand. I understand what you're going through. Go ahead and withdraw for this semester, and come back next semester. But you never know what's going to happen. Someone withdraws, but instead of doing that, Father Cletus said, would you be willing to meet with me again a few days later, next week? And Ray said, well, okay, if that's what you want. So Father Cletus set up a meeting with Ray, and Ray walked into the room, and one of the first things he noticed that there was a stash of money, bills, on the corner of the desk. And there was another person there who happened to be a board member from the college. And the board member said to Ray, he said, look, the money is yours. So you can go this semester. You don't have to withdraw from your classes. You got enough to cover your tuition and some additional expenses. And Ray said, I can't do this. It's not fair. And how do you think the board member responded? And well, he said, consider this a loan. You can repay us back later. You come back and teach here one of these days, and you could pay us back then. So just, it's not, free money necessarily, but consider it a loan for the future. So Ray took it, and everything went beautifully. He finished the semester, and of course went on to become student council president, very active. I'd call him a born leader. And he went on to go into teaching eventually. And he taught school, and he became superintendent in Hobart for 2 consecutive terms, and I think another Richmond, Indiana superintendent. But he also gave keynote addresses at many leadership conferences in education. And he taught it as an adjunct for 18 years at the college. He taught psychology courses. But at first, he didn't take any money, any stipend. And for all those years, he would not take the full stipend to pay back the loan. But he was great. He was and continues to be grateful to the present day. Isn't that amazing? An amazing story, huh? But it shows, the care that obviously the registrar couldn't do this for every student, but it really worked well in that case. And the second story I have is from the early 60s as well, a little bit later. And there was a diner next to the administration building, a few parking spaces. It looked like a railroad car, a diner in a railroad, George's Diner. And George and his wife, Mary, had established the business in around 1937. And it was a very good operation. The food was very good, and I just saw a sign poster that read, and we're clean. Yeah, and they were. They were clean. All the food was prepared there. In the 1960s, you could get a cheeseburger, a double cheeseburger if you wanted, with French fries, a coleslaw, and a drink for how much? 70 cents. Yeah, that's all it cost at that time. And it was George got a lot of business from students and faculty. And it was a great gathering place. Faculty would come in, and a lot of very good discussions took place there with faculty and students. The setup was a counter and then 3 tables in the back. Okay. So one of the professors, sociology professor Alec Laser, urged students, well, find opportunities, social justice, if you to put into practice what you're learning in class. See if you can find any opportunities out in the community. So, 4 students came in for breakfast time after an early class, evidently, and 3 were white and 1 was black. So the waitress came to the table, and they gave their orders, but the waitress would not take the black person's order. He said, we can't serve you here, is what she said. And his friends argued, well, why can't you? He said, it's our policy. We can't serve you. So George, the waitress called George to he was always there. So called George to the table, and he basically affirmed. He said, we can't, we can serve, the rest of you, but we cannot serve the black person. Okay. All right. Well, so they gave orders, the 3 white guys, pretty good size orders for a big breakfast, basically, eggs and so forth, pancakes, whatever, and something to drink. So, okay. But the waitress would not take the black student's order. All right. Then later on, she came out and gave them the orders, and I thought he was going to say that they shared the food with the black person, but what do you think they did? They all walked out. They just got up and walked out and didn't pay as a protest. Isn't that something? Putting into practice social justice principles learned in class. But unfortunately, George was not the only one at that time in downtown East Chicago that refused to serve blacks. As late as, I read in Shavings, 1969, as late as 1969, across one of the restaurants across the street refused to serve a black student. And I heard in another case, we had a black biology professor, Dr. Oliver. So he and a student came in and waited to be served, and nobody was coming to the table. So the white person walked up to the manager and said, can we get some service or so? And the manager said, well, get rid of the N-word. Believe it or not, that's yeah. There was you hear about segregation and racism down south, but there was racism in downtown East Chicago here at that time. Yes. I think I'll stop right there because the other story would take a little bit longer to tell, and then I'll turn this over to Amy. Any comments or questions or?
How was the Hispanics that lived in East Chicago? How were they treated?
Decently, as far as I know. I never heard any complaint. I'll put it that way. I did not hear complaints. But there were a number of businesses, and it wasn't just George's, but a number of businesses. We would refuse to serve blacks, and there weren't that many black students on campus at that time. We have a much.
Dr. Skiba, can I just add something? I was assistant editor of Shavings in 69, 70. I was editor in 70, 71. And we sent white and black and Latino kids into the community to look at renting apartments. And then they came back to me and we collected all the data and wrote a series of articles about how Latino kids and white kids and black kids could or could not be offered apartments for rent. And then what impressed me was you could show you things were changing, because I also wrote for the Chicago Globe, which I'm not sure it's still around. It was a weekly newspaper down the corner from the college. And that's the first time they asked me if they could reprint that, which surprised me, the whole series. And then I ended up working for them part-time. But it was funny because they said they have to change some of these things in their community. So you could see this whole societal turnaround, all the civil rights actions in 64, 65. It was starting to work its way down into the late 60s into Chicago. And then I would say I noticed a large increase in black students, probably 70, 71. We had, for the first time, we had several on the school newspaper. We had some on student council. So I'm just saying you could see it changing. So I'll just stop there. But, I was there at that time. I remember everything. George Diner, all those places. Sure.
I read all of the issues that you gave me when you were editor too of Shavings. But what was I gonna say? Wow, can't remember. Yeah, there certainly was discrimination at that time. The other story has to do with the march to from Selma to Montgomery, participation in that march. But I'll save it for another time. There.
Walter, I was wondering, well, eventually he would have had to, but did George respond in any way, in a positive way, to what happened to that protest? Did he change his policy anytime soon?
I believe he did, yes. And in 1967, he sold the building to the college or gave it, or what, I don't know the exact details there, because he retired from the business, and it became the college bookstore until the school moved from East Chicago to Whiting. But I believe George did, yes. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. 1971, because the college was seeking accreditation then, and of course they did a self-study, which included statistics about the student body. But at that time, 20% of the student body were listed as minorities. So 80% Anglo and 20%, well, African American, Latino, and other, but 20% at that time. Yeah, the participation in the Montgomery March, that's a good one too. But
We'll get that next year. then.
We'll get that some other time, yeah.
Okay. Okay,
I
Amy?
can, yeah, I can pick up on a couple of those stories.
Oh, good.
I'm
Good.
thinking about the story with the registrar and the father and how he connected with our board members. And two thoughts that come to mind is the continued support by the missionaries of the precious blood. And this year they have given us a significant gift that supports scholarships for those students that have zero estimated family contribution. So for those students that get full federal need-based aid and state need-based aid, we fill the gap with additional grants from the college, and those are all funded for the next 5 years by the missionaries of the precious blood. So that is a huge commitment to, again, access and affordable education and to the mission of the college, but also our founding order. And the other thought I had as you were telling that story is the continued support from our board members. So I remember during the pandemic, our current board chair, we were doing a Thanksgiving dinner to help feed our students with turkeys that couldn't go home, and we made all of these Thanksgiving meals with the various Thanksgiving items, and our chairman of the board actually underwrote all the purchase of the food and also gave us another check to help students. So our board members are still willing to sort of jump in where there's need. And then the other thought I had just when you were talking about certainly the racism back in the 60s, to see the commitment of the college and to stay strong to our values. And we are recognized by US News and World Report as the #1 most diverse institution in the state of Indiana. And we're in the top 10 in the country based on how they calculate their diversity index for regional institutions. So that's something we're really proud of. And I think it's a great asset for our learning environment and for our community. So
I think, yeah, the story I told shows the commitment, as you said, of the Precious Blood Fathers and the board members to make the school go.
yeah.
And they did what they gave some very generous help there in that case, and it paid off big time at the end. But today is I think minorities, so-called minorities, run over 50%, about 58.
Yes, I was going to say that it's closer to 60% for underrepresented. So, but I have a little presentation that I put together, and with some pictures and some highlights. And Michael, I can share that with you so that you can supplement with my recording if you'd like. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and I have 2 monitors, so I know it sometimes is a little bit challenging, but hopefully I can.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yes, and then I have to change the view. So hopefully, are we there?
Yes, we're there.
So I just thought I'd start by saying, I celebrated my 5-year anniversary this year. So I started in 2017, and I feel like a lot has happened in the last 5 years, not to mention a couple of years of managing the pandemic. But Walter talked a little bit about our past, and I'm going to cover some brief highlights of our present, and then just end with a few thoughts on what's to come. So when I gave this presentation, maybe last year, I think I shared some of when I think of presidential priorities, people always say, well, what are your priorities and your kind of vision for the college? And I always say, well, I'm focused on growth and sustainability. So I want the college to be strong into the future and have a strong foundation. As with our history, access and affordability. So making sure that We are accessible to students in the region. We are test optional and have been long before everyone went test optional during the pandemic, and just making sure our tuition is affordable. And we are one of the lowest priced private institutions in the state of Indiana. Oh, there's only one other one that is a four-year institution lower than us, but we are the lowest as far as a comprehensive institution with master's level programs. I want to make sure that we are relevant in our programs, that we're an inclusive and diverse learning environment, and trying to build this robust campus environment. So you'll hear about some of the initiatives, and that we are a value to the community. We always have been, I think, and trying to make sure that the community continues to see us as a valued resource. So last year I talked about the plan for new housing. I think when I gave this presentation, it was within the same week that we did our ribbon cutting, or maybe right after, because we did our ribbon cutting, I think on October 8th last year. And so the new housing opened on September 16th. We actually did well, I said the groundbreaking was October of last year. This year we did the ribbon cutting on 9/9, and we weren't able to move students in for a week later, but you can imagine, while there were lots of challenges, to be able in this construction environment with lead times and all the logistics that you hear about on the news, that affected us as well. So to be able to complete this project within a year was nothing short of amazing. So while this is the rendering, this is the building that is now up and standing, and it has 55 students living in it. So this isn't the best picture. We went out and took it today, so it's got a little bit of shadow on it, but this, if you have a chance to come by the campus, it is a beautiful building, and I think it goes very well with our current architecture. And our next step is to do some work with the landscaping, but our first step is to get students moved in, and we're still working through some punch list items. Just some highlights. I call it a living, learning, and serving house. So it's more than just a dorm and a place to lay your head and sleep, but it's really a way to develop and engage students. So it's yet to be named. I hope at some time in the future I have a name on the building. 3 stories, it's 63 total beds. As I mentioned, we currently have 55 of those beds occupied. We also have 50 beds at the Ileana. So our total residential population, even though that's not on campus, our residential portfolio, we have about 110. There are, this is a typo here, there are 30 double rooms, not 60 double rooms. There are 60 beds in 30 double rooms. There are 3 resident assistant rooms. Those are on the ends, and they all have their private bathrooms. Each floor has a community bathroom, which, you know, we had a lot of discussion about that, but some of the research finds that residence halls with community bathrooms sort of promote more engagement with more people rather than just your roommate. But they do have private showers and stalls with private doors, so there's some privacy within the community bathroom. This is a co-ed building right now, so our top 2 floors are male and our first floor is female. There is a large atrium lounge on the first floor that will be used for some educational space. We have a faculty liaison, and there will be educational learning opportunities that will take place on that first floor, which is more the public and guest floor. And there's a kitchen and media room on the second floor. And there's a study lounge on the third floor that is named the St. Gaspar Study Lounge. And this building, when I say the living, learning, and serving house, a quick comment on the serving, we will have some non-for-profit partners and have opportunities for community engagement and service for our students to build capacity for some of the non-for-profits in the area, and also get accustomed to doing some volunteer work, so that hopefully when they leave college, they will continue to do that because every community needs volunteers and engaged citizens. So we're trying to develop our students in that respect as well. The other thing I want to talk about, when I talked about building a robust college environment, we started sprint football. So that was also this fall. MSFL stands for the Midwest Sprint Football League, and I'm pretty proud to say that that league was started by 3 female presidents. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. The Collegiate Sprint Football League has been around since 1934, and that's been on the East Coast. So this isn't a new sport, but it has not been anywhere outside of the East Coast. And there are big schools that have sprint football. Army, Navy, Penn, and Cornell have regular football and then sprint football. And then there's several small schools that are part of the Collegiate Sprint Football League. I think they have 10 or 11 schools in that league. And so the 3 female presidents that started this league are the president of Fontbonne University in St. Louis, myself, and the president of St. Mary of the Woods in Indiana. So that was a conversation that we had in January of 2021, and to be able to start a sprint football team the fall of 2022 is quite an accomplishment. For those of you that don't know sprint football, it's football like you know it. Everything is exactly the same, except there's a weight limit of 178 pounds. So it is a sport where there are less concussions because the differential between the players is really only about 20 pounds. So you rarely have a football player that would be lighter than 158 pounds. So it's more of a running agility game. And I invite you out to the Whiting Stadium to see our last game on October 29th. I should have put that here, but our last home game is October 29th, a Saturday at 7 o'clock, and it's against Bellarmine University in Louisville. So, so I mentioned St. Mary of the Woods, Fontbonne, Bellarmine University in Louisville, and Quincy University in Illinois, and Midway University in Kentucky as well. And am I missing one other one? There's 6 of us. And we're hoping to grow to 10 schools in the conference by 2024. We have 3 coming in next year and 1 the year after. And so I'm pretty proud that Calumet College is a founding member of the Midwest Sprint Football League. And we're currently 2-1. However, the opening game we did lose, but that was not a conference game, even though it was a team in our conference. So we're really 2-0 in the conference. So that's very exciting. And I thought that we were doing something new and innovative. We do have 65 football players, so it was a big boost to our enrollment this year. But Walter, I'm not sure if you know what year this is, but we actually did have flag football back in East Chicago. And I do remember students saying, and Michael, did you play on the flag football team? You probably know about this.
Yes.
This is 1973.
Yeah.
I did everything there. You named the sport, I was in it.
Okay, so what I'm excited about is when we talk about past, present, and future, I love the fact that in our past, we had flag football and we definitely had students engaged. So Walter found this picture in an old yearbook and I wanted to just throw it in there. So this was flag football on the bus. There's our players, and the SJCC would have been St. Joe Calumet campus. In East Chicago.
St. Joseph's Calumet College.
Or St. Joseph Calumet College. But this was probably before we were independent, or what year did you say it was?
73.
Oh, okay. So this is St. Joe Calumet College. So I just share that with you. Again, now it's full tackle, so it's not flag anymore. So I thought I'd throw this picture in. This was our game against Midway, And the Crimson Wave won 35-0. So this was a big win for us, and it was our last home game. So I thought I'd just let you know it is full pads, full tackle, helmets, and it's brought a lot of energy and school spirit to the campus. I wanted to highlight a couple significant grants from the U.S. Department of Education. So last year, we received a $5 million grant that you might have read about in the paper as a Hispanic serving institution. So we are the first Hispanic serving institution in the state of Indiana. We've been a Hispanic serving institution for a long time, but we are also a minority serving institution because 50% of our students are from underrepresented populations. So we are not only Hispanic serving, but we're also a minority serving institution. There are federal grants available if you qualify as a Hispanic serving institution, which is more than 25% of your student population identify as Latino or Latina or Czech Hispanic in the box. And so we received a $5 million grant that is focused on STEM, and I've highlighted just some of the elements that grant is funding. So it's over 5 years, so it's $1 million a year for 5 years. It's intended to increase and support Hispanic students in STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, and math. We do not have engineering. Our sciences, biomedical, and I say plus biomedical science, we have medical lab science. We also have trying to think forensic science. So we have a number of sciences. Those are 3 of the current programs. Kinesiology is another science program. And then we are looking at other math and science programs to help Latino students in STEM fields, which end up being higher paying jobs as well. This grant provides a lot of academic support for those students, peer tutoring, additional support services, and a lot of opportunities for careers at internships that are paid because many of our students, like Ray that Walter was talking about, do work, so they can't afford to not work, even if it's at a grocery store or washing cars, or I forget where Ray was working, but to get an internship in their field, it really needs to be a paying internship for them to take advantage of it. And then we recently, as of last week, got another grant that we applied for as a Hispanic serving institution, and it's a strengthening institutions grant. So it's a little broader. That grant is $3 million, so it's $600,000 a year over 5 years. And the focus of that grant is health and wellness. So health programs in health and wellness, so allied health, health sciences, to provide support for virtual learning. So we have online programs, but we also have partnerships with other online providers. So making sure that we can provide support for virtual learning. Some technology enhancements in our computer labs and our classrooms. There's some money in there for infrastructure for our current systems on campus, and then professional development for faculty and staff. So I say those are transformational because we've never received grants anywhere near that size before. I think the highest grant before these was $1 million Lilly grant. So to have 2, certainly in my time, but even further back, 2 significant grants that total $8 million in the last 2 years is quite amazing for the institution and really allows us to move the institution forward. You know, the HSI grants, I've mentioned we were the first HSI in the state of Indiana. So Purdue Northwest, IUN are currently HSI, and I think Goshen is a developing HSI, so they will be soon as well. These grants, they have a number of purposes, but engagement of students, expand the visibility of the college, but also to increase enrollment of Latino students. So here's a picture of our students out in the Hammond Parade and just building more awareness of Calumet College as an HSI that is certainly supportive of our Hispanic students and their heritage and supporting them and their needs. A couple other transformational grants for the college. We received $1 million from the Lilly Endowment about 3 years ago in 2019. That was used for our Academic Enrichment Center and library, tutoring center. That's the library tutoring center. We have collaboration rooms in the library and study spaces and a computer center in the library. So that was funded by the $1 million. And then a lot of it was also used for academic programs and to research, starting some new academic programs, launching them, and also providing some scholarship support. And then we recently, I think about last month, received an award for a proposal we had submitted to Lilly for summer youth programs. And the intention, it was a request for proposals from Lilly. So it wasn't like we came out of the blue with a proposal, but to host summer youth camps on campus. And the goal of Lilly was to expose more of our youth to college, so that for the hopes of increasing the college going rate and the completion rate in the state of Indiana. And so we proposed 7 summer youth camps. We piloted a few this past summer with a planning grant, but next summer we will have 7 camps on campus, and it's the Earth Camp, which is a science-based camp in collaboration with the Dunes Learning Center, a summer reading camp for young children, and we've been doing that reading camp in the past. That was one of our pilots, but we have had a reading camp for a few years back with another grant, a math bridge program, Shakespeare in the Park, which is a collaboration with Gary Shakespeare Theater, the Science of Sports, which is a science camp, but with really on the science of sports and physiology, anatomy a little bit more, nutrition. Resiliency in youth, that really addresses mental health and wellness and resiliency through sports, but other initiatives. And then a Tecton Media Camp, which we also piloted, and it was full this past summer, which is the weaving together of different media for storytelling. So whether it's digital media, storytelling, there was a lot of great product that was produced during that camp by our, and that's a middle school, high school camp. And then future forward, I just thought I would end with a few highlights of what we see in our strategic plan that we're working on. With some of the academic programs, I could talk about several, but I just highlighted with our new grant from the Department of Ed, looking at health and wellness, and that's really data informed. When we look at the really the job demand in the region, there are just so many open jobs in the area of healthcare. So really focusing on health and wellness and how Calumet College can be a resource and our students can be well prepared for those jobs. Cybersecurity is another area where it's a growing demand, workforce demand. So being able to prepare students in the area of cybersecurity. Accelerated adult programs. We have a really strong program in public safety that's a degree completion program, and our business fast track, which is a fairly small program, but understanding how we can use the adult how we can really look at our adult programs and serve the adult market. So that's in our strategic plan. We have a pending application for a master's in public administration that will have concentrations that possibly serve not only public safety, but also we've talked about non-for-profit and the need for really focused non-for-profit curriculum. And then another where we've for a long time been the teacher of teachers, and I think we have the oldest education program in the region, and we have some significant funding from the diocese and also big shoulders to support Catholic school teachers. So that's been and a private donor that have come together with $450,000 in funding to support scholarships for Catholic school teachers. And then outside of the academic programs, we've been talking about what we call an 8+ initiative. And it's really to have our students connected more in the classroom and engaged in the classroom, which faculty are able to do, but also have them connected to another initiative. So whether it's athletics, and we have about 300 athletes, and we'll continue to grow. So that is a significant portion of our students are involved in athletics. And if they're not in athletics, we want them to be involved in activities, either in clubs and ideally take on leadership positions, which either could be working on campus or in clubs and officer positions, or the arts. So I mentioned a few things. We have a pep band, but we also have a humanities fest where a number of our students really shine and take leadership roles in planning, performing, and storytelling and speaking and competitions. So I share some of those quick initiatives that are in our strategic plan without going too much in depth. So I'll just end with a vision statement that we've been talking about and settled on, that Calumet College of St. Joseph is a vital and valued resource to the region and beyond, where students can be known, be successful, and belong. So it really speaks to what we're trying to accomplish with our strategic planning and our mission, and making sure that we embrace our small, diverse college family, and that people feel a sense of belonging, and that we can help them be successful and how they define success, but with a college degree. So that was my quick sharing here, and I'm happy to, Walter and I, to answer questions. So I think we're coming up on 6 o'clock, so we have some time for questions, but it's a small group, so we can also just have a few questions and then stop the recording and talk if we want. But
Dr. McCormack, I have a question. With the future instruction, will it be primarily on campus, or do you foresee some online instruction?
We currently do all of our public safety curriculum over Zoom. So it's a mirrored approach where we have Zoom classes in the morning and the evening. So those, you know, are, we do record those, and you could watch the recording later, but the intent is that it's in real time, but it's over Zoom. We also have a collaboration with a couple online providers, but as far as our identity will be more face-to-face. So the adult programs, our business fast track used to be all in person 2 nights a week, and now it's 1 night Zoom, or 1 night virtual and 1 night in person. So we're trying to hit that balance, but we have found during the pandemic, but also in a lot of conversation with our students, and the faculty are certainly could talk to this. Our students want to be in person. They're coming to us because we're a small campus. They want to be able to know their faculty, get the support they need. And I think they like to have a Zoom class here and there, but they would not want to have an entire program, where our adult students want the convenience.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to make a couple of comments. First of all, Amy, I did not know about the 7 camp starting up next summer, and that is wonderful news. And as a longtime fan of the now vanished Hammond Environmental Education Center.
Yeah.
I think that Earth Camp will do so much to fill a very terrible gap that the loss of that center has left. So that's just great. And
you know, I just I've only been to the environmental center a couple times, but I wonder, you know, I think of IUN as having a big environmental science, but I will say that's something, just given our location and given a lot of the social justice issues that come to play with some environmental issues. I've always wondered whether environmental science could be a good fit for us, and that could be the E, because I don't think we'll ever be doing engineering, certainly not on our own. We might have some collaborations, but so I always think, well, maybe that E in STEM becomes environmental science. So thanks for mentioning that.
well, in the meantime, this is a wonderful thing for local children. And if there's any way that I can pitch in and help with it next summer, I'm not a scientist, but yeah, perhaps I can be of some help. And the other thing I want to say is that although the presentations tonight were lightly attended, this has been absolutely wonderful. I think I've always loved it when you and Walter have done these joint presentations on the history, the present, and the future of the college. Tonight, I thought, was especially a great opportunity to see the connection between our beginnings, what our mission has always been about, and where we are now and where we're headed. And Michael, as soon as we find out from you that this has been posted on the OLLI website, I intend to recommend it to my students and tempt them with a little extra credit assignment so that our student body will be learning this. I think these are just wonderful insights and very inspirational sharing tonight. So,
you know, the one thing I didn't put on there, and when you were talking about the students going out to eat, is our food pantry. So we received a $100,000 anonymous gift, and we relocated our food pantry, and it's not just a pantry anymore. We will have a cooking kitchen in there, an ability to do some display cooking and do some nutritional classes and be able to keep it stocked for many years. So that was an incredible anonymous gift, but it recognizes the role that food insecurity plays on our campus. And I think that that's something that oftentimes surprises people, but it happens on every campus, but it's alive and well on our campus. So I'm just delighted that our food pantry can serve our students in need of a good meal.
I would just like to add something. We had a thriving Earth Camp back in the 1990s, and it was funded to a great extent by, well, Amoco, BP now. The capacity was 20 participants, middle school participants. My daughter, Jessica, participated, and I think Roy's sister's daughter too. And it was just excellent. And there were some outings to Indiana Dunes and other places, environmental centers and so forth. But it was very successful, and it always reached the maximum number.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about that camp and how it can grow. And I think about our native garden here, but we just have so many environmental resources and environmental concerns. So I think the Earth Camp, doing it with the Dunes Learning Center, it gives us a great opportunity to build upon that. And they have a lot of talented people that can help us with some capacity and gap filling.
Sure, great.
I had two requests for Dr. McCormack. The first is for years, well, not for that many years, a few years ago, you had a book club, and it was a great opportunity with the faculty and the Calumet College students and the local residents. I mean, it was fantastic. And then it ended, and no one could explain why it ended. I'd ask that you look into that. We really had a great time. It was a real opportunity for the local residents to interact with the students and with the faculty. So if you have a chance, that was so much fun. And everybody who participated and still talks about wonderful memories of going there and discussing books. But it ended and there was never any explanation. It just kind of faded away. And I think it ended at the end of the semester and nobody ever picked up the mantle again and took it on.
Okay.
So if you could, as a minor request. like I
Yeah,
said,
I'm gonna ask Valerie to help me with that because I remember there was a small book club that I remember a few people were in when I started, but I didn't have the impression that the community members were in it. So that
Oh.
could be something that maybe was the next generation. And I know that went away with COVID, but you know, maybe that's something by Humanities Fest we could launch and promote. I don't know the history, but I know that there are two people on this call, Valerie and Walter, that will know the history and can find out.
No, there was
What happened?
there was participation in the community and the well book club book discussion group. The person who ran it left the college for another position, and then it was just never picked up. After that.
Try Professor Lowry. He was part of it. He was great.
Okay.
But it was as good a book club as you'd ever have. I mean, the residents actually read the books and showed up. And I mean, it was, like I said, I couldn't say enough good about that book club. I've done a bunch of these, you know, things over the years, and in memory, that was one of the ones that I really enjoyed going to. And it was a really, like I said, it was really well put together. And I think that there are still lots of local residents who would love to participate in that. And I think the students got a lot out of it because the local residents read the books and were prepared to discuss it. And some of the local residents actually that were younger, I know one of them went on to become a professor elsewhere. So he kind of got his early learning. And then my only other concern was that I hope the college keeps an eye on the former Federated Metals property. I would hate to see something move in there only to have everyone say, gee, how did they end up in there again? Because I see it and I know that it's heavy industry and you could get a really bad company locating in there. So I'd ask that the college, you know, maybe tell the city, it'd be nice if we maybe rezoned it, or we just limit the kind of industry that's allowed to locate in there. We've had some horrible people that have, or horrible companies that have located in there. And I'd hate to see that happen again.
And that would be in Robertsdale, so that would be the city of Hammond, right?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
I want to make sure, even though when you say Whiting Metals, they're like us,
Well.
Whiting address, but not actually in Whiting. Okay.
Yeah, fortunately, they went out of business. They closed after they were found to be violating their permits, 100 times over. They were a horrible, I mean, we don't want to go into the history. Mike and I can talk for hours on that one, but
and I'm pretty familiar
bad.
with it because I've heard you talk about it too. So I have a meeting with Hammond soon, so I will mention that. And yeah, I think we would all want to be careful about what goes in there.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Mike, you're muted. You're muted.
Wow, my voice will carry a little bit better now. On the ecology thing, I've been to a couple recent events at the Fort Calumet Environmental Center, which isn't really that far from the college, and so that might work into something as well. I don't think it really. It's just available to students, and that would be without the environmental center in Hammond, that could be kind of an extension of that. Any further questions? Well, just remember we have this on tape, and so it'll be available for those who did not show up tonight. And just to let you know that some of our past recordings have drawn 30 and 40 people. So it's just not us. It's just us tonight, but it won't be just us in 10 days or so. I just want to point that out. So I'm going to stop the recording.
Michael, can I just ask a quick question? So
Sure.
on the recording, it would have my slides included as I went through them with the voice, so you don't need them, right?
Correct.
Okay,
It will have the slides, yes.
okay, just making sure. All right, thank you.
Okay, let me,
Have a good night.
Wonderful presentations.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Everybody.
thank you for,
Thanks for
Excellent
hosting.
program. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
bye.